my name is Tori Shendel Voda, and I'm the curator at the Evansville African American Museum. And for our next speaker, someone near and dear to our heart is Dr. Ashley Jordan, former executive director at the African American Museum. And I'm going to have her introduce herself. Dr. Jordan, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today and share a little bit about you to our community.
Oh, no, thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure being able to come back home. The Evansville African American Museum will always act as a special place in my heart in the sense of being an emerging professional. This is where I was able to kind of hit the ground running. I definitely felt the support of the community, and I think that's what makes that site so vibrant, is that we have extensions of our exhibitions still within the community who can act as oral history interviews or even collections through donation, because they are descendants of a person that we want to highlight within our exhibition spaces. So I love the Evansville African American Museum because of the work that we did, but also the impact that it had on my life as well. So kudos to you all in continuing on that journey. So yeah.
Absolutely. And do you mind sharing with our audience where you're at today, what you're up to, and what you're doing in the museum field?
So I am currently serving as the president and CEO for the African American Museum in Philadelphia. We are located at 701 Arch Street, right here in the heart of Center City, not too far away from where they signed the Declaration of Independence. I've been here now over a year. One of the highlights that I can say that has happened under my tenure, and I would say again, Evansville was like the launching pad for me in this work. The ways in which we fund the mission. I would say coming into this field, I was a trained curator. All I ever wanted to do was just to tell the stories of African American history and culture through artifacts or through manuscripts and visual history. But when I had my role there in Evansville, you definitely switch gears to the more day-to-day operations of museum work. And the museum does not exist without the funds. And so for me, I felt like, particularly that time where we were looking for funds to help us overhaul our outdated exhibitions, getting connected to the folks there at Toyota to help us change the look of our gallery spaces was so transformative to our abilities to offer museum education. And initially I thought, because of their focus being so heavy on STEM education, I was like, well, how can history fit in? And I do think that as of recently, they've incorporated the A to now be STEAM. So there's an area for the arts. And so I was happy about that, because one of the things that we wanted to do at the time was communicate what it would have been like to live in a housing project to our younger audiences. And so through the usage of Legos, and it really just came about by hanging out with my two nephews in the world in which they live in. They love Legos. And I was like, we could talk about community concepts through the usage of play. Like, we're basically educating the kids without them knowing, but it's through them playing. And so we created that Lego exhibit called Community Building, where we talk about what life was once like living in what was once, Lincoln Gardens. And so it was important for us to talk about concepts of community, because back then, the way in which people lived, that was very much so a front porch community. As in with today's standards, you have to be invited over someone's house, or we've moved now to like a whole back porch, private, secluded patios. But then people raise each other's children. They're at Evansville, the museum now, Miss Janice, who's the interpreter, who is the living representation of Lincoln Gardens, the heartbeat, the pride. Like, she resonates every time, like her whole body, her being just beams with like happiness when she talks about her upbringing in Lincoln Gardens. And so that was the part where we knew we couldn't recreate like those feelings from that time, but if we can invoke it in a new way, we could show kids what it was once like. And I'm happy about that, as well as the hands-on touch stations where we talk about the who's who of Evansville, like most accomplished, the people, I think, and not as much in the most accomplished, but more so how ordinary people made extraordinary contributions to history. And I think that's the part where we wanted our young people to see that they too, coming from Evansville, can do anything if you're just placed in the right environment. Make sure you're maintaining your schoolwork. All those things help to add up to the greatness. And so I'm grateful for that time, because now that I'm here in Philadelphia, taking that notion of finding the right funder to transform the mission has been helpful for us as an institution. We are the first city-funded cultural institution in the country.
Wow.
And one of the things that I don't think we did a best job in the past was utilizing our relationship with the city.
Mm-hmm.
With this designation, there was an opportunity for us to do more. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pleased to say that this past year, we received $3 million from the city of Philadelphia to help our institution do more in areas of museum education, because my concern was when I got here, you know, one, I knew you all were, this city was, we're in a major city. You know, Evansville is where it is, but this is the 6th largest city. And I felt like this museum was under the radar. Mm-hmm. Like you would pass us up to go to DC, or maybe go to, I don't know, you can go to the Detroit Museum, Charles Wright. I mean, there's different options. Mm-hmm. We got the new museum there in Nashville for African American music. Like people shouldn't have to pass us up to get there. And I felt like if we were able to invest in the museum, mm-hmm. people would come. Mm-hmm. Because people want to see history. The same reason why people go to DC to go see Harriet Tubman's Bible. We need to start highlighting our collection in that way, where it's bringing that same attractiveness. Mm-hmm. And so for Black History Month, I felt that it was important, as we're working to rebuild our exhibitions and our galleries, to do something in areas of programming. And so when I was thinking about who we should have as our signature closeout event, we were coming off the heels of Martin Luther King Day. And I was thinking to myself, because I just got done reading Stride Toward Freedom, the story of Dr. King. And the part that ever kind of keeps me engaged and just motivated is the fact that he was 26 years old when he led the Montgomery bus boycott, which was the most successful nonviolent protest in the country. And I know for you and myself as young professionals in this space, sometimes people see the age before they see what we have up here, the work and our ability. And that's like, Dr. King inspires me that regardless of my age, I'm never too young to make a difference. And I was like, I'm going with the King family, because I felt like his daughter is an extension of his living legacy. And I was like, yeah, we're going that route. And so we had Dr. Bernice A. King here at the museum. We held the event at Mother Bethel AME Church. Mother Bethel, in the sense of history, was started by Reverend Richard Allen, who, out of a need, unfortunately, even in our religious practices, African Americans had to be segregated within churches. He was once at the Methodist Church, but because of the segregation practices where he wasn't allowed to pray on the pulpit with the other white congregants, he left and started the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And so as of today, dating back to 1791, they are the longest private owning African American parcel of land in Philadelphia. And so I felt like it was a win-win for both institutions, because it gave us both disabilities. And when one wins, we all win. So I just feel like I'm doing my part here in a greater capacity in the city, to bring more attention to the unsung, the forgotten, and oftentimes omitted African-American narratives from history. So I would say Evansville, is small and mighty, in the sense that it gave me my start to talk about these things. And now how, being in this space, I've been able to amplify the resources that I learned while in Evansville. Yeah, and I'm sorry, that was probably a really long
That was amazing. It just makes me even more inspired and motivated, and feel extremely blessed to be where I'm at, because you're right, it does open up opportunities that you just never knew, and how you're able to grow as a person in this space. Yeah. That's one of the best things, because I just celebrated my 1 year at the African American Museum. It's been absolutely humbling, and the way I've been able to grow and understand that bigger community aspects and the bigger picture. That's something that even in my last 13 years of working in museums, I've never fully understood what the bigger picture aspect means, and how if our museum is successful, all of these other organizations are going to as well. I thought about it and I thought I knew it, but I didn't understand until getting into this line of work, and it's just been a massive blessing.
Yeah.
So blessing.
I agree. I agree. Particularly at a smaller organization, you find yourself wearing more hats than what you were trained. In our public history, you're trained by your specialization, but because of the need, you find yourself doing the marketing. You find yourself doing a little educational curriculum. But I feel like in the end, that just makes you a much more well-rounded museum professional. And I feel like what sets us apart in comparison to our other contemporaries is our flexibility, our adaptability, because we have done these things You can speak to some of the needs that need to happen, because if you've done it, you just know how to like go in and jump in and do it. So you'll be much better off because of this experience story. Like you'll be just ready.
I'm
Ready.
excited. Grateful
Yeah.
to hear your perspective on that as well. And really, that's a perfect transition to my next question is, what does cultural heritage mean to you personally? Because you've had a unique role of being a subject matter expert curator, you still are, but you're transitioning
Mm-hmm.
more into, as you said, the funding the mission. So has your idea of what cultural heritage changed as you progress in these roles? Or like really, what does it mean to you as a person?
Oh, excellent question. I would say, as a professional, making sure that freedom remains inclusive is so important to me. We know the climate in which we live in, where we're talking about fake news, fake history, critical race theory, even the actions of those in political office working to take out subject matters that speak to, brown and black communities, Native Americans, and so on. I feel like folks like you and me matter now more than ever. Museums matter now more than ever because we are sites of public trust. And we have an obligation to tell the story in its entirety, unimpaired, for future generations. Like we have to keep the script accurate, because people will say this didn't happen. They'll say, I feel like now there's all this awareness for Juneteenth, but for those of us who've been doing Juneteenth since forever, it's like, well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party. Yeah, it is. We're living in a state or our country where people, and they're going against what they call the woke agenda, but it's about people knowing history in its entirety. And so that history won't repeat itself. That's why we're here.
Amen.
So that people won't forget. And so that I feel like now the clarion call for people like me and you is even greater because of what we're up against.
And that's interesting because Mr. Lonnie Bunch at the Smithsonian did a wonderful presentation about a month or two ago, where he specifically said that history is about revisions and that we have failed as a greater corpus of scholars by not teaching that we are revisionists. As we learn, we update, and we make that out into the public. And it seems for the longest time that the public has only been given just a small slice of history, where Juneteenth didn't even play a role.
Right.
And it didn't even exist. And so we need to take upon ourselves to not only refresh our histories when it comes to the exhibits, but making sure that that information is out there for public accessibility and using our platform as much as possible to get it out there. Because we can't combat everything. And he did make that clear that there's only so much we can do. However, the power that we have is huge. And using that to the best of our ability to get that message out and to welcome people to the party, as you said, that's how I feel about every Juneteenth celebration we have at the African American Museum. Just the new group of people that come in every year that don't know it ever existed and there's a thing. It's just really important, and that's a great synopsis of what cultural heritage means. So thank you for sharing that. And with that, part of the speaker series is to encourage BIPOC communities to want to pursue museum and cultural heritage fields. And with that, what are your thought process when it comes to diversity in the field, what we need to do, or how did you see yourself coming through the ranks, especially since it's a predominantly white female field? What was this like for you, if you'd be willing to share your experiences?
Yes, I would say early on when I was coming through the field, I definitely say I saw a lot of women, but who tended to be in the leadership positions were men. And I would say that has since flipped. Now that I'm in these spaces, working with other female leaders. But yeah, I would say when I was first coming in, my early on bosses were all male. My supervisors were male. Yeah. And I would say I've had some good presidents and I've had some bad ones. And I think that's what sparked my my leadership action in the sense that I was at the Freedom Center, and the president that we had in place was amazing. Like I felt like I could do anything because I had that type of leader, And unfortunately, he was getting to a point where he was retiring due to health challenges, and they brought in someone who just didn't fit the culture. Like it is so true. Like the saying goes, where having the wrong culture can kill the strategy. Like
Yeah.
it just what we were working towards because of his personality, it
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, if this is what a museum leader looks like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be a leader. It's just like it sparked my change. Like it was like my call to action,
Mm-hmm.
to be the change that I wanted to see in the workplace, to safeguard institutions like the Freedom Center against people who just don't care. Like all by all intents and purposes, he just didn't care. And so
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was something that I wanted to be, but I also feel like in my role, I have an obligation to pay it forward, to cultivate the next generation. So like making sure internship opportunities are available, working with area schools, anything that we can help to eliminate the financial burden.
Mm-hmm.
We try to help our young people because we've all been there in school, trying to work, trying to navigate life and pay for everything. So it was just like, however I can do to be on the side of pulling the next person up into this space is important because we need people who want to do the work,
Mm-hmm.
who want to be a part of this journey versus someone who just like, I'm just here. I'm just here. We don't need people just to be here. The
Right.
mantle and the mission is too great. We need you to care. So yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight. And would you have any closing remarks for our audience?
No, I would just encourage our audience members, if they have not, to take out a membership for the Evansville African American Museum so that you can stay abreast to all of the updates and activities that are taking place. Because if you're friends with them on Facebook, it just makes my heart beam with additional happiness because it's like the good work is carrying on. And that's the beauty of history. Like history, when it's done right, you should be able to see those smooth transitions
Mm-hmm.
from one president to the next, from one curator to the next, because we're all working for the mission. And so I would just encourage you all to stay connected to the good work that they're doing there, because it is that life changing. So thank you, Tori, for the work you and Corey, Janice, Tim, the board. Keep up the good work because the part that I'm always championing for, places like Evansville can get overlooked by other sites of significance for African Americans like Chicago, Harlem, Detroit. But Evansville is just as important, if not well positioned within that narrative of American history as being a place where African Americans came for areas of education, workforce development. I mean, it had its attractiveness, and people don't know that. So if you take out your membership, you will see how that works. So yeah, that's my closing thought for today.
Well, I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for your time. And please don't be a stranger. We always love seeing you and supporting your work and your mission and driving the good word. So thank you, Dr. Jordan.
You're welcome. Thank you.